Morning. Welcome back to all of you who may have been joining us last week or may have already been on one of the presentations this morning. Good to have you with us, the NWR Virtual Investor Conference. We have got a stack of really interesting companies to get through today. So let's get to our next one, which is Atomos. Very interesting for those of us who work in television. We love talking about this business, but very interesting for lots of other reasons. It's, of course, a global video tech company. It has award-winning and really simple to use monitor recorder content creation products, which give creators across this sort of social, professional video and entertainment markets a really high quality but very affordable production system, which has been missing, I must say, for a long time in this market. So the Atomos range of products take images directly from the sensor of all major camera manufacturers and then enhance, record and distribute them in high quality formats for content creation. We have both the executive chair and the CFO standing by today to take us through a presentation and of course take your questions. If you do have questions throughout, of course, drop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll get to that in about 20 minutes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chris Tate, the executive chair, and James Cody, CFO. Gents, over to you.
Thanks, Kylie, and good morning, everybody. We'll run through a few slides here and then obviously take some questions at the end. So fantastic to be here. James, if we can just skip through those first couple of slides and just give everyone a little bit of a refresh of where we were at the half year. So just as a bit of a refresh, obviously COVID kind of meant that we had a whole of business review. There was an initial adverse impact on Animos from COVID. It hit our sales in the sort of around that March 2020 time. But that really ended up for us being a bit of a blessing in disguise because it made us look at our whole business, how we operated and so on. And we addressed costs, processes, and became a leaner, stronger, more efficient business. And then as things settled down, and we got used to a new COVID world, of course, we benefited significantly from the growth in video. So COVID initially, an adverse impact for us, but has ended up being actually a strong positive. And the most significant impact would be really, for example, an example would be how we've looked at our marketing, which was very trade show based. Trade shows were shut down. You know, we spent several $1 million a year on trade shows, which we no longer spend. And we now get our products to market through sort of influencers and other methods. And our sales for the last half of the year were stronger than they've ever been, but without that cost base. So COVID, a significant benefit for us. People often ask about the global impact on Animos, you know, trade wars and so on. Animos is well placed to withstand those kind of things. We've been aware of sort of the risks around component supply for a long time. We're always paranoid about it. We sort of manage with buffer inventory, very tight management, and we put a lot of resource into the kind of the risks around component supply. And we feel that there's really no risk to this financial year from component supply. Sometimes some delays on products, but no risk overall, so well managed. And then Forex, you know, volatility out there in the world. Animos has a natural US dollar hedge, so we buy about the same amount of US dollars as we generate in revenues. 60% of our sales across the world are in US dollars, so that kind of marries itself out. So overall, in good shape now, and then most significantly, I'll drop through those next few slides in terms of next few points in terms of internal, but very significant for us is our founder transition. We're a founder-led business. Jeremy Young, one of the co-founders who's built this business, one of the amazing people who came up with the invention of effectively the super video processing computer with Ian Overlease 10 years ago. And like many founders, he has sunk everything into the business over that period of time, never taken a dollar out of the company. And just recently, post the results, he was able to realise some sort of financial reward for all of those efforts, and he and his wife were able to realise a sale of shares. And that's been really, really positive for Jeremy in terms of, just, he's as enthusiastic and passionate about the business as he ever was, but he's now got the kind of a little bit more of that financial freedom that's making him more comfortable and able to really innovate on focusing on future products. He's also stepped away from the role of CEO, which was not his natural forte. He loves the products, and now he's full-time on the products. And all we're trying to make sure we do is we build a business that can cope with the amount of innovation that's coming out of Jeremy's team, as well as the rest of Atomos, and that we are scaled up enough to go and sort of capture all the opportunity we have. So we're in very, very good shape. James, let's skip on to the next slide, where I'll ask you to give everyone a bit of a financial update.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. So as you can see there on the left-hand side, the company grew very fast over the last sort of three or 4 years, and then indeed into the first half of FY20. And then COVID obviously slowed us down significantly, and you can see that we generated 11.8 million in that second half, which is a significant reduction on where we've been. But as Chris said, we've actually bounced back quickly and strongly, such that the first half of FY21 was a record revenue for us, and it was still a little bit COVID impacted in the first sort of 2 or 3 months, but growing strongly from that sort of low base. So very happy with the first half. Not just from a revenue perspective, we had good, strong margins, and we also, as Chris had sort of alluded to, we managed our cost base down significantly. And a lot of those savings are here to stay, particularly in the area of trade shows, which Chris has touched on. So that translated to, again, a record result from an earnings perspective, EBITDA of $3 million, which was, 3 times the level of the previous corresponding period. Also profitable at an NPAT perspective, which I think is the first time in the company's history that we've achieved that. And importantly, we generated strong cash flow. So 4.3 million of cash was generated in the first half, and we're confident that will continue. There's a good, healthy cash balance on the balance sheet right now. We've also got access to a $5 million working capital facility, so absolutely no requirement to raise any more cash in the foreseeable future.
Thanks, James. So let's jump on to the next slide. So stepping back, we've talked about, and sorry to hark back to sort of the adverse impact of COVID, but it did make us look at our whole business. And most significantly, what it did is it made us focus on the areas that would provide us with an initial recovery. And then our strategy was to get that initial recovery and momentum happening in terms of the sales line, cut those costs, and then use that momentum to really go and build the structure that allows us to capture all these opportunities that we have. And I can't overestimate the fact that Animos is like an iceberg. We've got this great business at the top above the water, but beneath there is an enormous bank of IP expertise that's been built up over 10 years of being initially in a very niche industry. Video content creation 10 years ago was very different to where we are now. And we were at the forefront of that, working with the world's greatest companies like Apple and Sony, really sort of at the forefront of developing the new technologies that we're all using today. And one of those, for example, is Prores Raw, which we work with Apple on their development of, and are still the only people in the world who have the rights to put that on a mobile device effectively, which is obviously the Atomos video supercomputer. So we have now implemented Prores Raw, which is the ultimate format for video capture. It's that raw format that is sort of the quality of Hollywood with the ease and usability of Prores, which is the original Apple format. So we've now implemented that with about 30. This slide's moved on somewhat. So we've got 30 implementations of Prores Raw now with different cameras. We've got another 8 coming up in the next 6 months. And what happens when we implement Prores Raw with a camera is, of course, if any content creator wants to record in Prores Raw, that ultimate Apple format, they need to buy an Animos device, so they buy a Ninja and they stick it on top of their camera. So that drives sales for us. That's the immediate driver of sales, the largest driver of sales. There's other factors, of course, but that's probably the most significant one. So as we get more and more of those cameras enabled, it continues to drive the base business, if you like. And we've got some significant ones coming up over the next 6 months. In April, Sony have got their Alpha 1, which is a very, very significant camera, and that will be outputting to Prores Raw. So we're very excited about that, and there's some other great cameras coming up as well. So momentum really strong on the camera launches. Let's jump on to the next slide. So let's just pause though. It's not all about Prores Raw. It's not all about just the immediate 6 to 12 months of sales of devices and becoming more profitable and generating cash. Where we're looking here is we're really at the forefront of the video processing industry and capturing and making high quality video. And the opportunities for us are very significant. Why is that? Well, as I say, Animos started 10 years ago by effectively inventing what was the video processing supercomputer. To do that, we had to build our own operating system. We had to go and build our own hardware. We had to do a lot of very, very difficult things. We had to form partnerships with the world's greatest video companies, the Sonys, the Panasonics, the Canons, the Nikons, the Apples, the Avids, and bring the world of software, which is predominantly Silicon Valley, US based, together, or video processing and editing, together with the world of camera capture, which is mainly Japanese, but is elsewhere as well. And we sit in the middle of that whole ecosystem. And what we do is more and more of what content creators want to do in terms of editing and processing video, they want to do at the point of capture. You can't do that on a camera. The form factor is wrong. You need a video supercomputer at the point of capture to go and do that, to make the edits and so on that you want to do. Now, when we started out, there were certain things that were key, such as having a high quality screen. But as time's gone on, others, of course, try and emulate what we do. We're always at the forefront, bringing more and more standards, more and more tech, more and more expertise to that. Let's jump on to the next slide, James. I'm conscious of time, so we might need to whisper through this a little. I'll give one example in terms of building that ecosystem. Just recently, we've announced the ability to download, for example, RAW over SDI. So rather than HDMI, you can get RAW over SDI by buying a little adapter for your Ninja, but downloading the software directly from the Animos website. Charge $99 for that, US dollars. And that will generate, we've done a very soft launch, very under the radar with that. We haven't particularly promoted it. But the sales are running very strongly, and that's just the first of one of our software downloads. There's lots of others. And think of the Animos device as just like your mobile phone. When this started out, had a limited number of apps and so on. And as video becomes the format that everyone is doing and everyone is capturing, and as everyone becomes a content creator in the future, Animos is right at the center of that. And that's the ecosystem that we're building. Let's jump on to the next one here. So let's just try and illustrate what we're doing here with what we call the rainbow slide. We started off back in 2010 in pro video, nice little niche market. We put some tech on there, the ProRes codec, which Jeremy went and flew to go to the US and met with Steve Jobs and asked him to have that codec and put it onto his computer. That's not an easy task. Steve, here's the device I'd like to stick your software on. It's got to be pretty good to go and do that. That's what Jeremy did. And now what we're doing is we're bringing more and more tech and standards. You can see that up the left-hand side there. As time's gone on, we've brought more and more tech and standards to the video processing supercomputer. We developed more and more of them. Once again, there's further, different video processing supercomputers from different kind of use cases. So the Neon, for example, when I'm on a high-end Hollywood movie, a really fantastic screen. The Ninja 5, which is used by anyone ranging from, on the sets of things like the James Bond movie, where it's put on put on a drone through to social influencers who want to create great content. And as time's gone on, we've had these waves of different video boom, you know, starting with Netflix and YouTube, you know, and then of course social, you know, social media, Facebook Live, and most recently the COVID video boom. Just the video industry is expanding, and it's expanding into lots of other verticals, and you'll see us in the future going into some more of those verticals, such as gaming and so on. And as a matter of fact, the biggest obstacle for us is to make sure we don't bite off too much. We just have to manage all the opportunity we have. That's been a big focus over the last 6 months, getting the structure right to scale up. So just as a bit of a summary then of where we've come from and where we're going. So just as a bit of a recap, you know, last period has really been about you know, dealing with the COVID hit, building back those sales, managing costs, and then making sure that we leverage the core business. We've got this great tailwind with the fact that the industry is taking up Prores Raw. It's adopting that as a standard. We've got the ability to provide downloadable software. You'll see us start to look at, rather than just one-off payments, look at downloadable software on monthly subscriptions. We obviously need to sort of evolve that gradually. And we've got another, you know, just core business of another 3 or 4 product launches over the next 6 months. Beyond that, the next 6 to 18 months, we've got our Series 2 product range. You'll see our entire product range being relaunched with the ability to do a lot of extra product, you know, extra functionality on all of those products. So the Ninja, the Shogun, the Neon will all be relaunched, but crucially, they're all going to be on the same platform. Now that's very significant for us because it opens up opportunities such as the Animos App Store, for example, which will be something that we'll be looking to develop as well. Now we're conscious of the fact that we're doing a lot here, we're expanding, we're going into new markets, so we will look at potential M&A over the next sort of 6 to 18 months, where it helps us move into new markets. And I'll talk on the next slide about the kind of areas that we'll look at. We will look at M&A, but we'll only do that if it's right and if we can take it on board in the right way. Timecode Systems, for example, was an ideal opportunity for us. Great technology, an industry standard, but a smallish business that we were able to absorb. We knew the people and that settled in very, very well. And we'll do more of those over the next sort of 6 to 18 months. And then beyond that, of course, you know, you'll see us moving into further areas. You know, we have this great technology, this bank of IP. We can start licensing that technology and creating licensing revenues around some of the implementations. And people forget, for example, that you know, that Animos, when it implemented Prores on a device, we licensed that Prores to one of the major camera companies. That was done prior to IPO. It was done at a bargain dollar number, but we licensed that to one of the major camera companies, that implementation. We certainly won't be doing it on that same commercial terms, but that was how this business has been built. This is how it's been built by Jeremy and Ian. It's creating those relationships. The guys have sat in the middle with these fantastic technologies that they've then gone and partnered up with these great companies around the world by offering those technologies to them. And that's built this global business, which is a pretty unique achievement. In terms of M&A, just a bit of a summary. Of course, technology standards, you know, we bought Timecode Systems, that's an industry standard. Where we can buy other standards that we can put on our video supercomputer, we will. We'll also look at other technologies which enhance what we do on the video supercomputer. So think of things like, for example, technologies that enhance streaming capability, that make it easier to use, speed it up. We will look at acquisitions in those areas. And then finally, as I say, we're looking at going into new markets such as gaming, and where we can go into make acquisitions that can help us go in, you know, speed up the ability to open up new products, services, or even geographies. We will make acquisitions. So I think we've managed to rattle through that reasonably quickly. I'm conscious, Carly, that we should cover off some questions, but just in a real quick summary, you know, the future is very bright. come through COVID really strongly. We're a COVID tailwind business. We're in the world of video, which is booming. COVID's been good for us. It's made us have a good look at our business, get the costs right. Short-term sales outlook is very positive, but really the thing to think about Animos is the long term. It's this great bank of IP and this video technology, and the fact that we have these relationships with the greatest companies in the world of video at the highest level, and that's the opportunity for us. Got it?
Great, thanks gents, very interesting stuff. We do have some questions starting to come in. If you would like to ask one again, just remind you the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Let's get to the first one. How is the streaming product soft launch going? Previously you've talked about, and you have kind of touched on, you know, streaming products for the gaming sector. Is this still part of your roadmap, and maybe you could give us a bit more information on what you're looking at there?
Yeah, streaming is very much part of our roadmap. You know, one of the things that we've certainly done in the past is we've sort of made commitments around timelines with products, and we're going to try and step away from doing that, because the reality of inventing new products is there's a myriad of obstacles to be overcome. Having said that, I'm very optimistic that we'll be bringing a very exciting product, the Ninja Stream, to market. And when I talk about, you know, you have challenges along the way, you also have opportunity. And what we found with the Ninja Stream is what Jeremy has managed to develop there is such a game-changing product that we think the price point of that product will be a very significant one. There'll be a limited supply, and that's one of the things we're working on. But we still think that will help to generate some significant revenues for us. More importantly, what we've done in terms of technology development around streaming, we will then use to create a bank of new products after that. So the capability of developing that very first and difficult to bring to market streaming product then opens up the ability to bring up a further range. And what you'll see is streaming will become something that's integral to even, for example, the Series 2 range of products. It'll just become a standard for us. So the first product, you know, think of as a product, being a challenge, bringing it to market, but we think that will come in the next sort of month. But then thereafter, it's really a case of that technology opens up great opportunity across the range, and streaming will just come standard.
So specifically too, I guess, you know, the streaming market, you've touched on M&A and looking at products and services that you could potentially merge or acquire. What about partnerships with some of the big, you know, potential platforms, the player platforms, for example, video player platforms, where you could, you know, if you did partner, you could essentially offer that service from, you know, the very start of the production process, you know, right through to the end user's experience?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and I think partnerships, you know, we're an actual partnership company. You know, that's exactly how we see ourselves. We are, whether it's a commercial partnership, you know, with the Japanese camera makers or other camera makers, you know, whether it's development partnerships with the likes of, you know, Apple and Avid and so on, we are a partnership company. So it's in our DNA, and absolutely, there's three ways these things play out, really. It's a case of we either partner with these companies, we'll look at acquisitions where it's appropriate, or it'll be a commercial partnership, or even, you know, one of the things we're actually sort of increasingly excited about is there's some great technology out there and some great entrepreneurs who we know have some groundbreaking expertise, and often there'll be some key matter or some key resource that's required to unlock, you know, that opportunity. It might be funding, it might be expertise, it might be some of the technology that we have, and we'll look at those kind of partnerships as well increasingly.
Okay. A question from James. Do you think you'll continue to have a monopoly offering ProRes, or is it possible for other camera or monitor manufacturers to support the codec?
We've got such a head start. I don't think don't think we've got a monopoly. You know, we've obviously got a strong leadership position. I don't think the M word's one we like to use, but we've got a very strong leadership position. I think, you know, I think it's very hard once that leadership position's been established for others to catch up. But we're, you know, always maintaining a healthy paranoia, you know, so we're happy with where we are right now, and we'll do our very best to maintain that leadership position.
Another question from Stella about free cash flow. Strong free cash flow lately. Do you plan to operate on a cash flow positive basis going forward? And if not, what are the major investments?
Yes, is the answer. We do plan to be cash flow positive going forwards. Obviously, Chris has touched on M&A. That would be the only real exception to that, I think. I mean, from a sort of base business trading perspective, absolutely, we expect to be cash flow positive.
And we will carve out, obviously, very clearly where there's an M&A investment, you know, what that use of capital is, so that people can see it.
Another question, are there any plans to introduce paid software enhancements on your older recorder products?
Each time you do one of these implementations, it's challenging and difficult to see, you know, significant investment from the core team. And, you know, I've talked about how important it was post-COVID just to make sure that we focused our resources on the right things, getting products to market on time, on budget. It's about as much saying what you're not going to do as what you are going to do. And, you know, we fully want to support all of our customers who've invested in products in the past, but we have to be realistic about where we spend that time and effort. And it doesn't make sense for us to invest in software downloads for older products. It's about the new product range and getting behind that. And that's where we'll increasingly be investing our time and effort. But we understand about our customers and where they've made investments as well, and we'll do all we can to make sure we support those who've invested in the past.
Okay. I guess with Jeremy moving to the founder's role, is the management team as it is how you plan to keep it? I guess, Chris, that's a question for you. Are you happy to do, you know, be the chair and running the show, or will you be looking for a new MD/CEO?
I'm very happy to continue to be the executive chair. I've got a great team around me. You know, James and I have worked in a number of occasions together, and James knows that I'm reasonably good at delegation. James is smiling. So we'll look to build the team out, the expertise, and that's my main role, is to make sure we get the right team on board and we expand the talent and the capability, and that's my main role. And I think we've got some great people who've joined us already. Mark Harland is our new COO. Rodney Block is our new head of business development. He's ex-GoPro. You know, another 3 or 4 people to add to that in terms of expanding the team. And it's all about getting that great talent into Animos. And a lot of people want to come to Animos. You know, it's an exciting company.
Great. Okay, well, we are going to unfortunately have to leave it there. We have to get on to the next presentation, but thank you very much to both of you. Really interesting presentation. If anyone else on the call does have any follow-up questions, you can just get in touch with NWR and they will put you in touch with these guys. Thank you very much. Talk soon.
Kylie, thanks very much. And thanks everybody for joining us this morning.